All right, folks. I don't know how much you caught of the pre-show or waiting to go live dance, but save your dollars because maybe there'll be more later. I am your host, Dash B, and we have a special delivery today. With me today, I have my co-hosts.
Hello, I'm Lizzie Hedgehog.
Welcome back, Lizzie, and we also have
I'm Jerry, Fighter Pilot 562.
yes, and we also have Chris and Marcin visiting with us, who are doing a
Yes.
Kickstarter for a new magazine inspired by PSM.
Not quite. Not that one. No.
All right, hang on a sec. I got a couple of these. I know this has got to be one of them. So they're inspired by Next Generation.
Almost, but no.
I'll give you a
No,
hint.
no,
It's
no.
on my boobs.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. So it's got to be Game Informer then.
I love Game Informer.
Wave
I mean,
Informer.
it's
is
not
it.
bad, but that's not what we're going for.
Okay, man, what the heck, you guys? Like, I went through a lot of trouble going through my garage to dig up these old magazines. Game Pro, maybe, huh?
See, that's a great game, but no. Don't go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
PC Gamer.
Not that one either. We do love
Lara
more.
Croft, though.
We do love Tomb Raider though. That's a good game.
Yes, Lara Croft.
EGM.
The first one. Hey, I actually prefer Tomb Raider 2 over the first one, but that's not the magazine we're going for either.
All right, look, this is the last one I got. This is either it or the show is done. You got it?
Perfect.
Oh.
Yes.
So MegaVisions is the closest that we can get to an actual magazine.
Yes.
All
The
right.
closest resemblance to what we're trying to go for. Yes.
All right, excellent. So spiritual successor, if you will, to Sega Visions. Do you guys want to tell us a bit more about it? You got a Kickstarter project going? Maybe give us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, we do. I've been talking about this in every interview that we've had, and I feel like I've been hogging the airtime. So I want to throw it over to Marcin, put him on the spot, and let him do the pitch.
And then
So
have
you-
me draw blank.
Yeah. You're
yeah.
up to bat.
Yeah, but basically, so what we're going for is we're trying to come up with a Sega and Atlas digital magazine, and it's going to be a bi-monthly magazine that's going to cover all sorts of news coverage. It's going to cover retro coverage, current coverage. We're going to have interviews. We have a bunch of fantastic people who are writing for us. If you guys remember that you had Tom Kalinske on your podcast, I don't even know when that was. When did you guys have Tom on your?
It was about 3 months ago.
3 months ago? Yeah.
Yep.
So for those who
Great
don't
guy.
know, if you guys haven't watched their podcast or ours, or read our interview that we had with him in at the Toy Fair in February, cheap plug. He was the former Sega of America president, and he will be writing a column jointly with Al Nilsson, who was the marketing director for Sega of America during what we would think is Sega's height in popularity during the Genesis era from like 1991 to 94, 95-ish or so. They're going to be writing a column in every issue about stories that they've never discussed, and we're very excited about that. We also have Blake Harris, who, if you guys don't know or read Console Wars, he's a fantastic author, and he's going to be writing for us as well. We have Randy Nilsson, who was the former official Dreamcast magazine senior editor. So we want to really capture that spirit of the Dreamcast magazine, and we are really excited and grateful for him to be a part of this team. We also have Patrick Scott Patterson.
I don't have a Dreamcast magazine.
You have Patrick?
That is a sin. That's a sin. Yeah, we have Patrick Scott Patterson.
Oh, I love that guy. He's awesome.
Yes, he's going to be a contributor as well, so he's going to be delving into Sega's arcade history in addition to other things. So, but that's one of the main things he's going to be focusing on. And, of course, we're going to have our team at Sega Nerds who are going to contribute as well. So we are really looking forward to it. If you guys have not downloaded our app, it's actually available right now. Google Play, Apple, Windows stores, Amazon, Rosetta Stone. I mean, that last one's a joke. But it's available right now. Currently, it is the Zero Issue works on tablets and computers. I'd recommend tablets because it looks good on a computer, but the full experience you could see on a tablet. So download it now, and also 44 hours to go. So if you have not contributed yet, you still have time, although not too much time. So yeah, that's my long-winded speech.
No, that's a good one, folks. Just to put in a second plug for that, they're currently trying to raise $13,000. They actually have raised so far $12,300. So they're really, really close, but there's less than a day and a half left on the Kickstarter. So definitely do not, wait till the last minute on this one. Do you want to be the person that is responsible for there not being a spiritual successor to some of these magazines that we've known and loved from our childhood? I don't want to be that guy.
I wouldn't want to be that guy either.
So, or girl. I wouldn't want to be that guy or girl. So set down Pokemon Go for just a second. Just a second. And,
I did.
Support their project.
I set down my Pokemon Go and went on this podcast, but it's in the background.
Well, actually, it looks like Marcin, there's a Pokemon right behind you.
That's probably my cat.
All right, I got it. It might have been a cat, but it looked kind of like Mewtwo, so maybe we'll see. I did want to remind folks that just like our other episodes, you can live tweet us during the show. There's a couple hashtags you can use for this show. You can use RRPFTW, which stands for Retro Reload Podcast for the win, or you can also use MegaVisions or MegaVision Does. So hashtag any one of those, and if we see your tweet during the show, whether it's a question or a comment, we'll gladly throw it out there. So if you've got questions or comments for myself or Marcin or Chris, let us hear it on the Twitters.
Please do.
So that was really interesting that you mentioned. I'd heard before that there was going to be some involvement from Tom and Al, but I didn't know if it was going to be like a one-off type of thing. This is really cool to hear that it's going to be every episode or every issue. So 6 times a year, we're going to get a nice inside scoop, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you actually download our Zero issue right now, you can get kind of a preview of that. So basically, the idea is we're going to sit down with Tom and Al, and they'll come up with a story that they want to tell, or it may end up factoring into whatever cover story we're going to have for that particular issue. It all just kind of depends on what's going on there, or if they have just a particular story that they want to tell. And they're just going to sit down and have a conversation with each other. We'll record that, we'll transcribe it, and present it in the magazine. But if you download the Zero issue now, you can hear a pretty interesting one where they talk about the early days of them having a booth at CES and how they used to hire celebrities to come sign autographs at their booth to be able to get more people over there. And one of those celebrities was Muhammad Ali. And it just happened to be, it was just pure coincidence that we had him on and we recorded this, and then it was just weeks later when Muhammad Ali passed away. But Tom had some really great stories to tell about Muhammad Ali, and they're really funny. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out because you can hear the audio version. We had some issues with some echoing going on, so we're gonna make sure that's fixed in the final version before we release our first issue. But we just wanted to kind of to show what kind of quality and the types of features and interactivity that you'll be able to see in the final version. Because one of the things that a lot of people were kind of confused about when we first said, hey, it's going to be a digital magazine, is I think a lot of people, when they read digital magazines, they essentially know them as like a PDF version of whatever print magazine. Like some of the magazines that you showed earlier, they will have like EGM and I think maybe GamePro, and some of those had PDF versions of those. And so essentially all you do is you just use a PDF reader and you flip page by page like you would a normal magazine. But the problem is a lot of times you'd have to pinch and zoom to read the articles and zoom in. It was very cumbersome, and it just wasn't that intuitive. So what we're doing with MegaVisions is we're throwing all that away, and we're making it just a completely interactive multimedia magazine where we can include audio, video, rotating images, slideshows, vertical scrolling of pages. So instead of reading just everything left to right, you'll get to an article and you'll be reading it vertically. Like, you'll be scrolling up and down to read the pages. We can do pop-up boxes and just some really neat things and features that a lot of people have never seen in a magazine before, and this is absolutely the first time there's ever been a Sega magazine going this way. So I think a lot of people initially thought we were crazy that, you know, we were doing a digital magazine, but I think once they get their hands on the Zero issue and see what it is we're doing, I think it's going to click at that point. And Tom and Al have been really great throughout all this. You know, when I pitched them this idea probably at least a year and a half ago, when I started talking to Tom about it, and he was very interested from the get-go. He kind of wanted to know our plans. When we told him we were doing a digital, you know, magazine, I think he may have had his reservations as well, or his questions. But we showed him some of the early designs of what we had, and he was very impressed by it. And so Tom and Al are really great. I think to be able to get some first-hand stories that have never been told before directly from Tom and Al is one of the biggest selling points of the magazine. It's something that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. One of the things about MegaVisions is that the content that you buy, you can rest assured when you spend $3.99 on an issue of MegaVisions, or, you know, $20 on a full subscription for the year, you can rest assured that that content's only going to be in MegaVisions. It's not going to be released anywhere else. It's not going to be posted on Sega Nerds later on. It's only going to be in MegaVisions. So you can rest assured that the content that you're buying for that issue is going to be there and only there. And I think that's going to be really important for some people.
Nice, nice. One of the things that I like is how accessible a lot of these iconic people are from the early days of gaming and everything. And I think something that we take for granted, especially as you start going farther back in the back catalog of, like, you know, Master System, Atari, things like that. Some of these fathers of gaming aren't going to be with us, you know, for much longer. So. You know, you got Al and Tom still got plenty of life left in them, but as you start going farther through the back catalog, you know, to the earlier systems, the time that we have to kind of hear these stories firsthand that have never been told before is winding to a close. So I'm thankful that there's, you know, publications that are coming out that are looking to kind of, okay, give us some new school stuff, right? Because obviously a lot of people are only interested in what's going on now, right? Unless there's an article about Pokemon Go, they're not going to read it. But then I still think that there's a healthy body of us who remember our childhood and kind of wonder what was going on the other side of the curtain, you know, when these games were getting made, or when, you know, Nintendo and Sega, you know, were going back and forth in the console wars and that kind of stuff. Some of these stories have been told, but it was almost a decade worth of gaming back in the day that Tom and Al were involved in. I would be very shocked if we'd heard all the stories that there were. So
yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of what you said, I discussed this with Chris before, and it's just kind of really, you know, so you can't kind of really believe it that you're kind of discussing and, you know, planning things out with the head of the guy who really, you know, set the foundation of a lot of our childhoods, Tom and Al, who helped, you know, bring Sega Genesis to so many of us, and, you know, the Game Gear and the Sega Saturn and whatnot. And you know, as a kid, and even like now, you have like so many things separating you and the head of a company. You know, you like let's say if you wanted to contact the president of Nintendo, you'd have to go through the secretary and then the press conference or contact guy, and then you might get a predetermined, you know, message sent back, and it's really crazy for me to think that these guys are really so personable, and, you know, they're collaborating with us, which is still blowing my mind. And, you know, like you said, the history that took place during the 90s, and especially shined a light through Blake Harris's book, is really fascinating, and it's actually not something that I would have ever considered to be fascinating if not for Blake's book. So when I read Blake's book, and I was, you know, reading it on my Kindle actually, it's just, you know, the detail that went into it, the emotions that they had to go through, the conflict, the behind-the-scenes rivalry between like Nintendo and Sony, and even PlayStation. If you guys remember that story, they were at like some kind of press conference, and PlayStation's representative guy was being like a total dick, but I mean he was doing it in like a very, I guess you could say, edgy way, where he was promoting the PlayStation through things like, you know, balloons at the pool, or he was really like crapping on like Sonic, and they like drew things on pictures, you know, in there, and it was a dick thing to do, but you know, that's how they got through to get the message across for the PlayStation, and it's just details like that that are really fascinating, and I am really looking forward to our issues where they have so many stories that they could not even, you know, fit into Blake Harris's book that we are going to be able to provide for people who are going to read our magazine. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, PlayStation really did that?
Yes, they
gosh,
they had
I
a
was
marketing
there.
guy. Yes, they had a marketing guy that was like really. You know, so what that guy did was he showed up to different companies and he'd be there for like 6 or 7 months, do his thing, make them popular, and then leave. And that's what he did for a lot of companies, not just video games, but other gaming stuff too. But I don't know, like I found it fascinating. I found it hilarious. And he actually did, he was one of the initial guys that helped bring PlayStation to the forefront. So
Yeah, but
it's
drawing
interesting.
on all
Oh
those
yeah,
images.
oh yeah. I mean, it's a dick move, but like, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
let's,
what he
let's
was
be
Man.
honest.
If I was there, if I was there.
Yeah.
Let's be honest though, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think a company that had such campaigns as Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
I guess it was fair play, right?
And then, oh yeah, I mean, remember the commercial? And Tom talked about this. I don't remember if it was during the live show or the off-air segment, but he talked about when they did the commercial about the Game Boy versus the Game Gear, right? And how, you know, if you're a dog and you can't perceive colors and you like to drink water out of the toilet, then I guess you wouldn't mind if you're playing Game Boy or Game Gear.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
for everybody else,
clever
there's
marketing,
Game Gear,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and that was just the atmosphere of like the 90s and that era, where it was a lot of political unrest and stuff, and people were rebelling, and that's how you had so many different products, like, you know, Jerry Springer, and you had the Attitude Era in wrestling if you're a wrestling fan, and you had marketing like that from video game companies that were really edgy and very, you know, fringe. At that point, it was still like a fringe thing. Now it's a real billion-dollar industry that's really, you know, corporate and pristine and clean, and it's just an interesting thing to see the dichotomy between, you know, then and now. So, but yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. Fascinating.
So now, is the magazine going to be strictly Sega and Atlas? Because Sega just bought Atlas recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to reach out into, like, would there be any mention of things like, you know, Nintendo recently announcing the Nintendo Classic that they're going to be announcing in the fall?
So yeah, it's primarily going to be like Sega Atlas. It'll also cover games that appeared on a Sega system. So we cover basically anything from the SG-1000 all the way up to the Dreamcast that was, you know, third-party type of games and things like that. We do, you know, definitely want to include some fun features. So we may end up doing something about that could poke fun at the Nintendo, you know, at a Nintendo system or something like that. One of the things that we love is just that feeling of the old rivalry from back in the day, which, you know, was, you know, really captured in console wars. But it really didn't touch on some of the personal stuff of what happened with us, you know, on playgrounds when we were arguing with our friends over which was better, what was more powerful between the, you know, the Super Nintendo or the Genesis back then. And so, you know, we like to have fun with stuff like that, and so there may be some articles that kind of harken back to those fun times, and we may end up doing some joint articles with some other Nintendo publications out there, or something like that. And so we'll definitely, we're not like hard line that it can only be Sega or Atlas. We want to have fun with it. We want to be entertaining, you know. Entertaining and informative are really the two things that we want someone to take away from every single article within MegaVisions. Either they come away entertained, having laughed, or they come away having learned something. And so that's one of the biggest things about when we're looking at games to cover, whether it's a retrospective, whether it's a retro review or something like that. We want to be able to add something new and give something new to the community and to our readership. We don't want to review Sonic 2 again, just for the sake of reviewing Sonic 2.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's done that. We want to review games that either have been overlooked or are hidden gems or just something like that. Or maybe we've been able to talk to the original developer or someone else that was involved with the production of the game to be able to offer something new to our readers. So that's another big portion of where we want to take every single article within MegaVisions. So that if I can make sure that every article is informative and entertaining, I think I've done my job as the editor of MegaVisions. Absolutely.
Something that I think as you were saying that, something that occurred to me would be like, you're right. I think another review of Sonic the Hedgehog not needed. But what would be really interesting would be if we were able to talk to some of the minds behind the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on capability, and how it was that they were able to implement this both for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which they already knew when they released it that they were going to have this, but then they were able to go retroactively and do it to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which they'd never intended or foreseen. At least I don't think that there'd be a lock-on capability. So clearly, the way that they handled it for one couldn't have been for. They couldn't have used the same technique for the other. And it'd just be really interesting to hear their thought process, like why they wanted to do it at all, how successful they feel the idea was, what some of the technical challenges were in doing it, why that was the only game that we ever saw that had that kind of technology. I mean, really, they were the first ones to launch, if you think about it, not necessarily DLC, but at least add-on content for an existing commercial game after the fact. So this was well before internet and everything had taken hold like it is now.
There's a hilarious meme that has something along those lines. It's like Sega doing DLC before it was like Smash or something like that, and it showed that game. But you're right. I mean, that's a great point because I think up to that point, that was the very first game that we've ever seen do something like that. And there may have been another game that I'm not aware of, but and that just goes to show. I mean, that was one of the biggest aspects about Sega that I think drew them, that they just were pioneers and they were so innovative, and oftentimes it was to their detriment. A lot of times they would release technology that the market just wasn't ready for yet. And I think
32X.
The 32X, you can talk about the Dreamcast, the Sega CD, which really relied heavily on the FMV video games, which they thought was going to be the future of video games, but just it absolutely it tended not to be. But I still have a soft spot in my heart for the digital pictures games and those FMV games. I just think it's a neat part of video game history that I don't think gets enough credit for what they were trying to do. I think it's a very fantastic and fascinating portion of the video game industry, because it wasn't just Sega doing it, but you saw it was 3DO that was doing it. There was all sorts of other, the Atari Jaguar had some, but a lot of different companies went that way, and it just
what was that game that you had in your closet, Corpse Killer or something like that? What was that one on the 32X?
Yeah, I mean, well, it was a 32X CD game. That's one of only a handful of 32X CD games, but it was also it came out on the Saturn and I think the 3DO. There was also a weird PC release of that, but what's actually the Saturn version is considered the definitive edition because they went and added some new content and some gameplay features. But yeah, the 32X CD version is pretty cool too. I like that one.
So I want to kind of jump back to the. I'm glad that you mentioned it because I actually had a question for what kind of things do you think would make the electronic magazines stand out from other digital magazines and stuff that have come out, and you went into that a bit in terms of the audio, video, that kind of thing. But one thing that I thought was always really interesting, whether it was EGM or GamePro or Nintendo Power, for me it was always interesting to go to the letters to the editor section and see people, like real people, interacting with the editors, interacting with the magazine. Surprisingly, I don't know what was going on with the Nintendo editors at the time, but like some people's comments got some really, really interesting responses. But one of the things that I do remember is I do remember hearing really kind of cool stories sometimes about things like, for example, I remember reading about this guy I might be blurring some of the stories together, so I apologize. But the general gist of it was, I think it was a guy that was in Desert Storm, and while he was in Desert Storm, his house had caught fire and burned down. And when he came home, you know, most of his stuff was just torched, gone, done. But he actually had a Game Boy that had been in the house that had been, you know, burned almost to a crisp, and it still had Tetris in there. Tetris was like melted into the Game Boy, and just for the hell of it, he throws a couple batteries in it, flips the switch, and through the half-burned screen, you can see, you know, Tetris, like, and you can hear ping, right, and it still, the buttons were melted, so he couldn't play it, but it still actually fired up the cartridge and ran. And, you know, things like that, I think, I don't know how many Game Boys they sold because of that specific article, but definitely, you know, back to the time, yes, it was just random people writing in their stories, but like you said, it made these companies seem like they were right there. Like there were people behind the companies. You could kind of touch them. You could kind of interact with them. There was a heart and soul to the company, and something that I think you know, has been lacking lately, whether it's in you know, online forums, not necessarily the forums, but online you know, websites. Like you've got IGN and you've got GameSpot and all these other things, and they have forums and all that other stuff. But the forums are really like people go and they randomly associate, and rarely does anybody from the actual publication go in there and hang out. What I think has really been missing is still that level of interaction with the viewers and with the readers and that kind of thing. So do you guys plan to have anything like a letters to the editor type segment or section?
Yeah, I could answer that. So I think if some of you guys haven't been on Sega Nerds before, anything like that, we have done a community spotlight type thing, and actually Elizabeth was on one of ours talking about her brain tumor story, and that's what we want to do with our magazine. And like you said, the current magazines that are in publication right now are really very hardcore promo fest. So it's just really like we mentioned in our video. It's Halo that's coming out. It's you know, what's the next Gears of War, you know, and it's really a focus on that type of stuff. And it does miss that heart and soul of the magazines that we are used to and that we grew up with, that had things like letters, you know, to the editor, or even community stories, or fan arts, or contests where it's like draw your own thing, submit it, and then, you know, you get a prize or whatever. That is really missing, and that's what we want to include in our magazine too. So, you know, have a community spotlight, have a letters to the editor where fans could ask questions and then we could respond. What we really want to separate ourselves from other publications and have that form of community interaction in our magazine, and I think that is something that will be really integral and separate us from the rest of the pack. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Before we go on, I do want to say, going back to the Game Boy, the melted Game Boy that you were talking about earlier, that is actually, they have that at the Nintendo World Store in New York. That very Game Boy is on display.
Really? How
Yes,
bad
I've
did I
seen
butcher
it.
this
I've seen
story? How bad did I butcher the story?
No, I think it was actually pretty accurate. I don't know exactly the details of the story of how it was burned, but as far as like all the other aspects, I mean, they have a small write-up when you go and check it out, and it's right there. It's a case. I haven't been to the World Store after they did their renovation earlier this year, so I don't know exactly where it's at now. Before, it's upstairs in kind of an enclosed case where they had a lot of other cool memorabilia.
Yeah.
But it was there last time I saw it, so it's pretty neat.
I remember another article written to Nintendo Power. Again, it was by a boy who he was going blind, and I don't remember why, but it was like a degenerative muscle type thing. But his parents had gotten him a Nintendo Entertainment System, and he'd started to kind of play. And after a couple of months, he goes to the doctors, and like his eyesight has improved. And so, you know, the doctor's like, well, what are you doing? And he's talking about playing games and stuff. And his doctor's like, okay, I need to talk to your parents. And he basically told his parents, you let this kid play at least 1 to 2 hours of video games every single day for the next, you know, between now and the next visit, and we'll do another checkup. And yeah, I mean, you saw stories like this, and it's not to say like everybody that's blind, right, is going to be able to see and that kind of thing. But again, it was kind of like, being a kid myself, going like, wow, that's kind of amazing, right? So
Yeah, it really is.
heart and soul. I don't have anybody that comes and randomly kisses me while I'm on the show, and I'm the host. Like,
That's the cleaning lady too.
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing.
I'll be sure to let Jamie know that too.
So, Lizzie, did your
So
story?
one thing they didn't tell you about that story with the kid though,
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
was that after they went from the doctors, his parents went and got him a Virtual Boy, came home and played it, and then he went completely blind. So he lost his
Wow.
vision completely.
That's so funny, cause
I'd believe that.
mhm.
So, Lizzie, back in the day, did any of your stories make it into any Sega publications of the day?
No, sadly, because see, my surgery happened back in '93, so I was just right there when the TV shows came out, the comics came out, exact time, but I couldn't write. See, my hand
okay.
was very wobbly, and I couldn't
Yeah.
write, so I never had opportunity. The only time I spoke to Sega at that time was during Rock the Rock concert. I mean, the contest they had where you got to go to Hard Rock Cafe. I went there to play, but my hands were still so wobbly when I was playing the game. But my mom was doing her best to tell them about my surgery and how I had been playing the games, and she even showed them my scars. So whoever worked at Sega back then saw it. But that's what Sonic did for me, because I mean, similar story to that boy. I played the game that helped me with my hand, my hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
But it also helped me with recovery. I was dealing with a lot of drama in school because I was getting bullied a lot. So Sonic really was there for me. I mean, so I really badly wanted Sega to know back then. I really badly wanted Archie Comics to know, hey, you guys really mean a lot to me. I love Sonic very much. He means
Yeah.
everything to me. But I
So
never had
guys,
back then.
I don't mean to put Chris and Marcin on the spot, but if Lizzie's looking for some Sonic love and some episodes of MegaVisions, you guys have anything in the works?
I mean, like we mentioned before, I would love to just do integrated more stories into it. And if Elizabeth wants to submit something, we'll see and plan something around that. But like your story and like you said in your reaction that you gave, and how it makes people feel good. How you have companies and businesses that you look up to and things that they create make you feel better.
Yeah.
If we could just do that little part, even if we might not think it's significant, I feel like the reader that you dedicate that story to will have feel very grateful, and it'll be a significant effect on them. So
Yeah.
definitely, community involvement will be very beneficial and integral in our magazine. So absolutely.
Yeah, because to be honest, I always get messages like on my Facebook and sometimes on my Twitter where someone who had a brain tumor or some other form of cancer will always answer me and say how happy they are, and they're like, "Wow, Sonic helped you too," and you give them that little confidence where it's okay to tell people online, "Hey,
Right.
Sonic helped me out a lot." That's okay.
And I
Right.
think it's kind of ironic, now that with social media and everything, every major player, right? Sony, Nintendo, Sega, they all have social media presences. They all have Twitter accounts, they all have Facebook feeds, all that kind of stuff. But it definitely does seem like, I mean, even for something as simple as like I tried to digitally purchase this game and something went weird with the transaction. I got charged but didn't get the game. It feels like you have to like swim through like 17-mile stretch of molasses to get to like a human being to actually like interact. Whereas it used to be, I was telling Lizzie offline, so I guess I'll let our audience here know. Like back when I was a kid, I remember every now and then I'd get grounded from Nintendo, right? Like either maybe my grades weren't where they needed to be, or my parents would kind of like not like the way that I treated my sisters or something like that. I learned pretty quickly, get good grades and treat your sisters nice, right? But up until then, right, there were those times where it'd be like 2 weeks, no Nintendo, and I'd be like, oh, right? And there would be times, once or twice, I was guilty of calling the 1-800 customer service number for Nintendo just to talk to somebody from Nintendo. And you know what? Like, nowadays, right, it'd be like, hey, dude, I get, like, by the hour, you know, whatever, like, get a counselor or whatever. But I have to say, like, back in the day, I would call up and just be like, hey, I'm still on Nintendo. My parents aren't going to get a Super Nintendo. You know, is there anything still coming out I can, like, ask my parents for Christmas or whatever, you know? And these guys who could have said, like, piss off, kid, right? They'd be like, hang on a second, let me see, right? And they'd send me, like, stickers, or they'd send me, like, at one point they actually sent me, like, the directory of all of the publishers for Nintendo and everything that had been released up to that point and everything that was planned until the end of the year. And it was like, holy cow, that's pretty awesome. You don't get that necessarily from these companies, you know, nowadays, especially customer service. You know, like, a lot of these people, you know, they're judged on how quickly they can kind of finish the call and that kind of stuff, and sometimes they're, like, paid per call and that kind of thing. So it's weird that you have social media, so we're now more connected than ever, but I feel farther away. Like, from Nintendo, I feel miles away, especially since the death of Iwata. It just seems like the company is, you know, the only stuff they revealed at E3 was stuff we already knew. They're not really revealing a whole lot, and it almost, you start to feel the impression of, do they even care, right? Is it really just looking at the numbers in the spreadsheet at this point, or do they still really care that there's people behind there supporting it? So to have publications, even if they're only, you know, because Tom and Al are not currently with Sega, but what's cool is they're not with Sega. They don't owe the community anything other than what they've already done. So to see, like you said, Marcin, like, these guys continuing to kind of show up and invest time, you know, in the audience and in the community that they helped build is amazing to me. And it just kind of, like, it gives me hope that maybe if this is successful, which I hope and expect it will be, that maybe others will follow suit, and maybe we'll have some inroads to Sony, some inroads to Nintendo. You know, that I think the inroads to Nintendo kind of died when Nintendo Power died.
Yeah, there's also the Nintendo Force magazine ran by Lucas Thomas. They're doing a great job over
really?
there.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, check it out. It's actually a physical magazine that they launched like right when Nintendo Power basically finished their first issue. So I subscribed to that. I actually got my latest issue in the mail today. But going back to kind of what you were saying about Tom Kalinske, one thing about Tom, what I find just fascinating, is he pulls no punches when it comes to Sega. He will not, you know, sugarcoat anything. If he thinks what they're doing is, you know, a bad decision or just poor, you know, direction, he'll say it. And so when you read the things that he writes in MegaVisions, you can tell, you know, you can rest assured that what he says is what he believes. He's not sugarcoating anything. He doesn't work, like you said, he does not work for Sega anymore. So there's no sort of corporate spin or any type of, you know, like propaganda or anything else that he has. He's telling you his stories. He's telling you what he feels and all these things. And there's also a lot of other people within Sega that, you know, were included in Console Wars that will also we're also going to be reaching out to, and we hope to have different interviews with within MegaVisions as we kind of go forward. But also just kind of touch back on what you were saying about some of the social media things with Sega and stuff. But I mean, I've been covering Sega for at least, you know, more than 10 years now. I mean, I think I started my first Sega website probably back in 2001. Something around then. It was all on Dreamcast. And back then, it was way before Sega there was no social media whatsoever back then. There was no Sega blog. That was not around yet. They basically just had a very rudimentary website where they would post some news, they post some pictures, and then for the media sites, they would have an FTP server where you could go up and log in and find, you know, a new press release that they posted or some new screenshots of a new video game that they released, and then maybe a video. But back then there was no YouTube either, so you couldn't just upload a video to YouTube. It was just very cumbersome. And so I've been able to see kind of the evolution of Sega as they've kind of evolved and adopted social media, and they brought in community teams and community managers. And there's been some amazing people that have worked at Sega in their community team throughout the years. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't work there anymore because some of them have just moved on to different work, or they got laid off, or what other things. But they've had some really great people that have worked there, people that we've worked very closely with and had really close relationships with that made our jobs a lot easier. And we're still looking forward to working very closely with Sega for MegaVisions. We definitely want to do that. In a lot of ways, like I wanted to be able to have MegaVisions, kind of be the quasi unofficial magazine for Sega, so that we could kind of work with them on new stories and new games that are coming out, coverage and things like that. So we'll see what happens with that. We're still trying to work some of that stuff out. But the big thing is we're gonna have, like we said, we're gonna have like new content coming in. We're also going to have a big focus on retro stuff. But another thing that I would like to be able to do, too, is just focus more on what's happening in Japan, because a lot of times that doesn't necessarily get a lot of play. And not just from a video game standpoint, but from a merchandise standpoint, from anime, and all the other things that Sega is doing. Because it feels like a completely separate universe right now from what Sega is doing in Japan.
Yeah.
And what Sega is doing in the West, because in Sega Europe, it's all about PC gaming, and it seems like a completely separate company from Sega of Japan, whereas Sega of America is much more involved in the mobile space and in entertainment, and in branching out and building Sonic into more of a worldwide brand. So it seems like that's where their focus is at these days, not necessarily in console gaming. And so it's a fascinating thing to see the different aspects on how each different branch within Sega kind of interacts these days. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we can kind of cover that whole relationship within MegaVisions as we go forward.
Yeah, I'm also interested. I'm sorry, go ahead, Lizzie.
Are y'all going to do anything special since it's Sonic's 25th anniversary?
So for the 25th anniversary, we'll probably be doing a lot of that coverage on Sega Nerds.
Okay.
Because with MegaVisions, our first issue isn't going to be coming out till later this year, like in the fall. So we're basically, once this Kickstarter wraps up, we're going to get, we're going to go right into finishing out the Zero issue, because we want to get that Zero issue. Because right now, if anyone downloads the Zero issue, it's specifically for tablets and computers right now. So if you have a tablet or computer, you can look at it. But if you have a smartphone, what people are finding out is they could download the app, but when they opened the issue, it would crash on their phone. That was because it's not yet compatible for phones. So what we went back and did is we created a couple of pages. We created the cover page, and we created another disclaimer page that said, hey, sorry, but the Zero issue is not yet available for phones at this time. That way it wasn't crashing on people, and they could kind of see what it looks like on phones and what it will look like. So once we get the Kickstarter wrapped up, we're going to finish out and flesh out the Zero issue. That way you can see what it's going to look like on phones, and it's going to be amazing. So we want to fix that up, and then we're going to be rolling right into the first issue. I mean, we have lots of stuff planned, but we're going to be going back to the community. We're going to be talking to our backers. We're going to, once the Kickstarter's over, we're going to create a forum where we're going to be discussing and having open lines of communication with our backers to be able to really kind of shape the content of the magazine and get a better idea on what really they want out of MegaVisions. So we want to work with them to build what MegaVisions is going to be and what it's going to become. What you see in the Zero issue is not 100% decided on what MegaVisions is going to look like. We really want to work with the community and make sure that we're delivering a magazine that they really want and what they really desire. And so that's one of our biggest standpoints, is we want to build this magazine for the Sega and video game community. That's one of our number one priorities.
That's great. That's great. Also, what'll be neat to see during the course of you getting different inside stories and inside scoops and everything, I am constantly fascinated at the number of accidental discoveries of prototype and unfinished games. I'd be very, very excited if you know, some of the columns and everything, and some of this might be wrapped up in, you know, like contracts that were signed and non-disclosures and all that other stuff. But for everything else, where like the company doesn't exist anymore or whatever, or the, you know, maybe the time has expired on the keep a lid on it type thing. I'm just excited for any possibility that maybe we'll hear about like 32X games, Sega CD games, Genesis games, licenses that fell through, sequels that were, you know, discussed but didn't happen, you know, that kind of thing. Or more often than not, you know, games that came out in Japan but never made it to the U.S. and maybe were more, you know, they weren't really mainstream. So, but maybe still good games. I'm constantly surprised every year that there's at least a handful of really good games across consoles that just come out of nowhere. So I'm still curious about what from our past, you know, we would have really enjoyed, but we just didn't know about it. So I'm glad you guys are digging up some of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I think is one of the most fascinating aspects about Sega is Sega in Brazil, because, you know, because of the different laws that Brazil had during the Genesis era, and it really, I think, even up till today, it made it where it wasn't very smart, or it didn't make a lot of sense for companies to ship consoles to Brazil to be able to sell, because the import tax was so high. So what Sega ended up doing is they partnered with a company called Tectoy to be able to manufacture Sega systems in Brazil and sell it under the Tectoy name. And so you got the Sega Genesis and all these other types of games in the Master System in Brazil that was incredibly popular. But one of the cool things about it is they got a lot of Master System games in Brazil that never made it out of Brazil. And just because they were so expensive to get those games, it's really hard. And even till today, some of these systems go for so much money on eBay, and so it's so hard to get them. And so that's one of the things that you kind of touched on that I want to kind of delve more into is some of Sega's history in Brazil, and talk to the people that were at Tectoy at the time, and that were making some of these decisions on bringing out these Master System games that may have been released on Game Gear, but you know, they decided, hey, we're going to bring this game to the Master System, or other games that were never released outside of Brazil. I want to focus on some of that stuff because I think it's really interesting, and I think a lot of people may not be aware of it, you know?
Yeah, excellent. So Master System Lover 92 said, please repeat what the Kickstarter information is. So Master System Lover 92, if you check down in the doodly-doo after the show, I have a link to the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Kickstarter pages for the MegaVisions project. You can also go to Kickstarter and search for MegaVisions and find it on there that way.
Our Facebook page has it too.
Our Facebook page also has the link, so plenty of ways to find them. They can also find you guys on Twitter by going to /MegaVisionsMag. They can find them on Facebook by going to facebook.com/MegaVisions. So we've been live with Marcin and Chris. Thank you very much for giving us an overview of what MegaVisions is, what's motivating you to do it, some of the stuff that we could look forward to. I'm pretty excited. Like, if it has more of Al and more of Tom, I'm super excited. If it has more about like the stuff you talked about with like all these maybe hidden gems in Brazil, or even if it's just understanding what it required to release a system in another country, I think some of those stories and anecdotes that we haven't heard before would be really, really great to see. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. If I could just say one more thing before we go. We do have a couple of interesting tiers on our Kickstarter. So if you just want to just get the magazine on its own and just get an annual subscription, you can pledge $20 and you'll get that. But if you're interested in getting something more out of MegaVisions, and if you're someone who's a collector and you like to have or posters and things like that, we have a physical tier where you would get a signed 11x17 full color print of the very first cover of MegaVisions. We showed that off a few weeks ago. It's going to be on Toe Jam and Earl. Our cover artist is this really amazing artist named Rob Duenas. He's done stuff for Retro Magazine, a bunch of other magazines. He's a super amazing artist. So we're going to have a signed 11x17 color print of that. you'll get an 11x17 black and white print, a 5x7 metallic variant on that. You'll also get a MegaVisions poster. You'll get a MegaVisions sticker. You'll get your subscription and early access to the forums. All of that for only $80, which is one of the best values that we have on the Kickstarter. But if you want to go a step further and help shape the magazine even more, you can pledge $100 and you can choose any Sega or Atlas video game you want us to review in the magazine. So if maybe you have a game that is like one of your guilty pleasure video games that no one else talks about, and you want to get some more coverage of that video game. For me, one of my games I love is Boogerman. I love that game on the Sega Genesis. It's one of my games that I played a lot with my cousins growing up, so it has kind of a soft spot in my heart. But when you hear people talk about the Genesis, they never talk about Boogerman. And so if I were to do it, it would be Boogerman, but maybe you have a different type of game. And so if that's something that you want, you can go there. You can get that tier, which is $100, but you'll also get a annual subscription to MegaVisions, and you'll get that 11x17 signed cover print as well. So we just got a lot of value. We try to make each tier that we offered something that people were going to want, but we also wanted to make sure that there was value there as well. So I think we've done that, and I hope that everyone who's listening, at the very least, just please go check out our Kickstarter. If you look at it, you watch our videos, and you see what it's all about, and you decide, you know what, you don't want to have anything to do with it, that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. But I just hope you'll at least check it out and then make that decision after you give it a chance. But if you look at it and you say, you're not interested, I'm perfectly okay with that. Just the least that I ask is you just go to the Kickstarter and watch the video and read through
share it.
Yes.
So something I can throw out there. Do you guys, when people back it, do you get to see when they backed it? Like the time that they backed it?
Yeah, actually, during this podcast, we had someone drop $20.
Nice.
So
Awesome.
I'm gonna attribute that to your podcast.
Nice.
You gave us $20.
All right. Well, to the person who contributed the $20, if they hook you up with their contact information, I will send them a complete in-box copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, compliments of Retro Reload.
Fantastic.
So
That's awesome.
sweet.
We will look at that. Yeah. So we'll make sure we will try to find that person. So
Yes.
Sonic 2,
Alrighty.
man, that's a great game.
It is a great game. So I scored that one at the thrift store. So, but I already have it. So I actually have two, but they get the one that's not for resale.
But you know what though? You think that it's Sonic 2. There are 1 billion copies of those made. You think they'd be really cheap? They're not going for $1 anymore. You get one
No.
and you're spending at least $10 at most places. And if it's a complete copy, they're trying to get 15 to 20 out of you these days. So even though it's these games that are super common, these old Genesis games are going up in value. It was Nintendo, for the longest time, which was just everyone was collecting. Now everyone's going towards Sega, and you're seeing those prices go up a lot. So it's tough days for collectors. It's not easy anymore. You have to spend a lot of money. So
We really need, and anything that you guys can do with anybody that you talk about, right? Like, we really need an alternative to the Game Gear for playing our Game Gear games.
Absolutely.
So, especially because those games are still dirt cheap, mainly because we can't play them except on busted Game Gears. But I have 2 Game Gears I resurrected. I replaced all the caps in them and everything. It has a great library. The games look great. They even hold up well on a TV. But we don't have a solid way to play them. So Hyperkin, App Games, any of these guys, Sega themselves.
Have you heard about the Retro Freak before? It's kind of like
I did, yes.
Whoa.
So the Retro Freak, we had this at Too Many Games when we were there. It's made by a company called Cyber Gadget out of Japan, and it's similar to the Retron 5, but it plays some different games. It doesn't play NES games, but it does play PC Engine, TurboGrafx games, GBA. But they're coming out with a Game Gear converter, which you'll be able to put in. You'll be able to play Game Gear games on your TV, but it'll also be able to play SG-1000 all the way up to Mark III. So if you have an SG-1000, some games like that, which I do, I love SG-1000. You'll be able to play that on your retro freak. And so this is neat because it's going to be the very first time, like you were kind of saying, this will be the very first time we'll be able to actually play Game Gear games on our TV without having any sort of mod chip or anything like that in a Game Gear or in a Master System. It'll actually be able to play, so it'll be pretty neat.
Yeah, and people can pick those up at Play Asia.
That's right.
So, all right, Marcin, Chris. Marcin, do you have any last words you want to throw out there?
Not really. Although there was someone who just donated $15 again, so
Hey,
35
awesome.
bucks through your podcast. I'll just keep attributing it to you guys. But yeah, I appreciate for you guys taking the time to help us promote the magazine. I'm glad you guys gave us another platform to talk about it, and I enjoyed our conversation. I'm sure Chris had too. But yeah, so we have around 43 hours left to go. We have around $700 before we hit our goal. So people out there, you still have approximately 2 days to help us make it a reality. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for putting us out there. So thanks.
If we can make it to $3,001, I announced a stretch goal on Twitter earlier today, that I will get MegaVisions tattoo of our logo on my body forever. I will absolutely do that. And one of our writers, the Requiem, announced, he was on the Genesis Gems podcast earlier this week and said if we can get to 15,000, then he will upload a video of him playing Samba de Amigo in his underwear.
Yes.
He wears very small tidy-whities, so it'll be amazing.
Can we contribute extra for that to not happen?
If we can
Absolutely.
increase our pledges, absolutely, yes.
But no, I just want to thank you guys, like Marcin was saying. It's been great to have people in the community like your show and like you guys that are welcoming for someone new to come in and try to do something different and help promote their product, because that's something that I've always tried to do at Sega Nerds is try to help people that are doing something new, try to give them a platform to be able to talk about and promote their thing. And it's just been great having people go on the other end of that and help us promote it, because you guys don't have to do that. You don't have to take the time out of your day within the Sega community and the retro community that have come out and helped us promote this Kickstarter. So one of the things that if we do successfully fund this magazine, this is not something that is our success. 100%, it is the success of so many people out there that have helped make this happen, that have helped share it on social media, that have helped write stories, that have uploaded podcasts, that have interviews. You guys have been amazing at helping make this happen, and I think it's one of the great things about the retro Sega and video game community, that we help each other out. We're out there looking out for each other. It's just been such a great thing, and it just kind of re-energized me to get back out there and do an even better job. So I just want to thank you guys and everyone else who's helped us promote the magazine up to this point.
Absolutely, great. Jeremy or Lizzie, any final questions or thoughts before we close down?
I'm just really looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Jeremy?
Just hope you guys make your goal. And,
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'll be hitting refresh madly on the browser tomorrow around that time. So
I've been hitting refresh on my phone on every computer or device I'm on. I'm constantly on our
show. I was watching it too.
Yeah,
I have the tab open at all times, so
Yep.
staring at it right now.
nice. We should make an app that just refreshes your Kickstarter page.
I would love that.
You'd have to launch it like tomorrow, though. I don't have much time.
Darn. All right, folks. Again, all the details are going to be down in the doodly-doo. You've got less than a day and a half, well, roughly maybe a day and a half left, so don't procrastinate if you want to do it. You don't want to be the guy that left them $20 short of their goal.
Shame.
All right.
I'd pound the shame bell.
Folks, this has been Retro Reload. It's been a great time. Thanks again for coming on the show, both Chris and Marcin. It was good to have you.
Thanks
Thanks
again.
for having us.